Welcome to the W2W review. I am the Oakland Knight, and joining me as always is the Raider Pirate. What's up, Pirate?
What's going on, Raider Nation?
All right, Raider Nation, today is Wednesday, and it's going to be a little bit different schedule, a little bit different of a program today. We play the Seattle Seahawks tomorrow night in our final preseason matchup, so this will be our pregame version. The pregame version is going to be ran a little different today, simply because this preseason game is the most meaningless preseason game out of all four. There's 22 players left to look at. They're not going to be on this team. There's 22 guys that are not going to make the roster. So this is their chance to kind of make a lasting impression, if you will, and kind of set the tone for their careers. And, you know, I think that this game, you know, shouldn't even be happening in the big picture of things. It's a waste of time. But we're just going to be looking at what it means and what we should be looking for as fans and looking at the 53-man roster, our starters and whatnot. So, Pirate, with that being said, what do you got for us today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's like you said, this has been an interesting preseason. The teams that we've played, you know, I think we found that we have some issues with the running game. That wasn't a big deal last year. I think we did fairly well last year. I think we've been really focusing this year, like you talked about, on trying to find a pass rush, trying to generate a pass rush. And I think a monkey was just kind of monkey wrench was really thrown into the mix when Mario Edwards Jr. Kind of went down. So now they've just been kind of swapping guys around. And then, like you said earlier when we were talking in our production meeting, they're not going to fix those things this week. I mean, it's really not going to matter. They're going to use practice to fix those things. They're going to, you know, be putting in the players that they're going to try to use against New Orleans. You're maybe going to get a series in this particular game if they don't hold the starters out completely. And then you can kind of factor in the weirdness of, you know, what's going on with a guy like George Atkinson III, what happened with Cowser not playing in the game at all on Thursday? Are they trying to sneak these guys onto the practice squad? And then the guys that were cut, once again, you know, this would have been a great time for us to see McCaffrey. This would have been a great time for us to see Hansley. So again, this has really been a different kind of preseason. A lot of mixing and matching and things. And again, as we said before, you're not going to see very much in this particular game because 22 of the players that are going to play the majority of this game. I mean, if you take away the 11 starters on offense and the 11 starters on defense, that's 22 players there. Then you know you're going to have to cut another 22 players. Then you know that they're going to be playing the majority of the snaps. So you know, these guys probably won't even be here, so it's not going to. So there's no reason for you to try to game plan. This isn't even a game where I would sit here and say, you know, in order to win, they've got to do this. This is really just fundamentals, footwork, feel, timing. You know, making sure that you are giving 100% effort, you know, getting up, chasing plays down from behind, figuring out if you're going to make it on special teams. I think that they already know exactly what the depth of this team is going to be coming into this game. So once again, to me, it just seems like it's going to be an effort game.
No, absolutely. And you hit a lot of good points there. Yeah, this game right here is I'm in the personal belief that they, like you said, they know what the 53-man roster is. Now, there might be one or two players. There might be some decisions they got to make, some tough ones, especially in the running back department where, you know, now you're trying to decide what you're going to do with Marcel Reese and Tywan Jones. I mean, I think that's a big decision, and I know a lot of people may not like that thought process, but it's true. You got a slew of young running backs that are really challenging these guys. You know, Marcel Reese, you know, I know he's listed as a fullback. He could play tight end. You could line him up at wide receiver. I essentially see him actually on this roster for those reasons. You got an injury to Game Holmes. He's on the injury reserve list. So, you know, but that also opens up the door for the first 4 weeks of the season where you could actually keep an extra running back just for those first 4 games to give it more time to develop in real time. It's not going to hurt you. because Marcel Reese will come back and you can flip-flop if need be. But I mean, some of those things are interesting. I want to see the running back lineup this week. I want to see GA3 get some more work. So these are the kind of things that this game is set up for. And like you mentioned, you got James Cowser. I mean, this is a guy that we've been talking about. He's shown that he's coachable. He's been fairly consistent. I didn't really hear much from him last week, but then again, I mean, the whole team didn't really play well on defense last week. So again, you know, like you said as well, is this a game where we're going to be looking for consistency, continuity, building off what we did last week? No. I mean, this game is not going to pertain to what we're going to see in New Orleans. That window has passed. You know, we'll be lucky to get a series out of these guys. Now, they might just decide defensively to run them out there a few times, depending on what happens in that first series. So for me, for example, I mean, I expect this team to at least maintain and hold down their ground against the Seattle Seahawks on defense, meaning I don't want nothing more than a field goal. I don't even want the field goal, but, you know, I mean, ideally you want to see a 3 and out. You like to see this team shut down the run, get some pass rush, you know, get them 3 and out, get the offense on the field, whatever. But I think that it's even if they don't, there's no relevance to it. You talk about no scheme. They're going to be continuing to work on that pass rush. I mean, that's the stance I'm taking. I have confidence in this coaching staff that come week 1 in New Orleans, they're going to start dialing up some different packages that they know that work better, and that they've seen in practice anyway. And they really took this opportunity to run a ton of different sub packages. We've seen so many different defensive linemen in different positions. I mean, you brought up last week, we saw Dan Williams lined up at defensive end, for crying out loud. I mean, why? You know, is it just, you know, to throw the other teams off? Like, what are these guys doing? I mean, at times it looks a little psychotic, right? It's crazy, but I think in practice is where they're really focusing on their schemes, and they're working on some things in the preseason games, but they're, like we've been saying, they're keeping a lot of things close to their chest. They don't want to show too much. They know what works. I mean, look at what they did with Richard. Here's a guy that had a bunch of hype. He came in, he showed some good talent, and then we didn't really see him the rest of the game. He didn't really get that much opportunity because I don't think they want to showcase what he really can do. They want to keep people guessing. Now, this is all speculation, right? But that's what this game's all about. It's all speculation, this game. There's nothing that we could rest our hats on. You want to talk about win-loss don't matter? Well, in this game, it's more than that. It's the stats don't really matter in this game. It's all about the individual and the plays that they can make, you know, on the most consistent basis. Your thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You know, there's an interesting small bit of relevance here with Pete Carroll coming in, you know, and this starting unit. So we will be able to, I mean, the Seahawks have got a very strong running game, you know, and they play the run extremely well. So they're extremely disciplined. This is a defense that we want to kind of emulate. So there are some interesting correlations here that you can kind of look at where if anybody knows how to attack this defense, it's going to be Pete Carroll. And you know, if they decide to come out and they want to continue running at it, I suppose that you're going to see what certain players are going to be able to do. But once again, I think that this team, like you said, is really looking to try to develop those pass rushers. I think with Bruce Irvin not really showing up very much. He's shown up a play here, a play there. Once again, it's preseason, so the amount of snaps is very low. You don't get to get into a rhythm. But with the same limited amounts of snaps, you know, again, a guy like James Cowser comes out and he shows you on each play that he's around the ball and he's creating havoc and he's causing turnovers. He's not getting the sacks himself. He's not getting this. He's not getting that. But obviously, he's making the quarterback make some decisions. So I think this is an opportunity for them more so to find other rushers, for a guy like Calhoun to really kind of step up and say, hey, look, you've been given the opportunity against some of the stronger competition. Let's put you in here against some of these college guys. You know, it's like I said before, every free agent is not going to pan out. Every draft pick is not going to pan out. I mean, we'd love it to. We'd love to sit here and say, oh, my God, all the guys that we brought in, did a fantastic job. But in most cases, that doesn't happen. In most cases, one or two of the guys that you bring in through free agency just aren't what they were with their previous team. And one or two or three of the guys that you bring in through the draft will never be what they were in college, whether it's scheme fit, competition level, natural talent, whatever it is. So, again, we have to look and say, hey, man, we've got a steal in a guy like Cowser. Maybe Calhoun's not quite the guy. And that's, again, we haven't seen enough. So that's kind of the exciting thing. We're going to get to see some of these players, and we'll talk about that in the second half, like you said. But once again, I think that there are guys that have an opportunity in this particular game, individual opportunities, to just show
Correct.
that they can be a guy to kind of step in and be that additional pass rusher, because we just haven't seen it. We've seen some fairly consistent rushing off the edge, but really no rushing from the middle. And we haven't recorded a ton of sacks, So when we started talking at the beginning of the season, the preseason here, we were just like, whoa, man, it's just going to be pressure, pressure, pressure. Balls are going to be getting thrown. The secondary is going to be getting interceptions by the bushel. Those things haven't happened yet. So the opportunity has been there, but the secondary has dropped the passes. The pass rush hasn't quite got to the quarterback. Once again, I think individually, if we see some guys really step up their game, get a couple of interceptions, really take over the game, like hopefully George Atkinson III can do, so that we can put him back into this conversation. Because if it ends like it ends now, we're always going to be wondering, what happened? Game number one, this guy comes in and looks like a beast, and then he gets shelved pretty much for what we had last year that didn't work.
No, correct. And I think that's, for me, one of the biggest highlights that I want to see is how is GA3 going to respond to what I believe is going to be his best opportunity. And it's unfortunate, once again, he's going to be playing against guys that are most likely going to be cut. It's frustrating, but at the same time, it is what it is. But if he goes out there and dominates, it's going to leave a lasting impression on this coaching staff, this organization, to make that decision of how they want to run with this thing. And in my personal opinion, they're not paying me the big bucks to make these decisions, but I think GA3 should be a part of this team.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just for an additional 4 weeks, like I said, Marcel Reese is your backup plan there, right? I mean, he's going to be suspended for the first 4 games. He could easily slide into that spot. Give him some opportunities if he continues to showcase great ability in live action, and then just go from there. That's my thoughts on it anyway. We'll see what they decide to do moving forward, but nevertheless, I think that this is an opportunity for a lot of these young players to come in and make a lasting impression, if not for the Raiders, for the other 31 teams that are out there too. So there's usually some exciting play, some, rough, tough, probably a lot of penalties because they're going to be playing so rough. But, I mean, there's some stuff to look forward to in this game. Don't get me wrong. I just believe that it's not going to be everything it's cracked up to be. But there's something that we can get from this, so we just got to pay close attention. All right, when we come back from break, we're going to take a look at an article that's given us an idea of some players to keep an eye out for, and we'll give our thoughts on the article. So stay tuned.
You are listening to the Will to Win broadcast with your hosts, the Oakland Knight and the Raider Pirate. Don't be shy, boys. Call the show after each game at 888-912-9846. The only thing missing is you. Oh, did I mention I love a man that speaks his mind? But seriously, boys, let's get back to the show. And go Raiders.
Welcome back to the W2W Review. I am the Oakland Knight, joined by the Raider Pirate. In our second segment, we're going to take a look at an article, and it's going to break down 5 players that we need to keep an eye out in this game, and then we're going to give our thoughts on the players that this article talks about. Pirate, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so because the Will to Win review is really kind of going back and re-looking at some things that other people have written and giving our opinions on it, that's kind of what we want to do today. So today's article comes from inside the Oakland Raiders. And it's by one of our favorite authors, Jimmy Durkin. And he says that going into this game, there are some guys that we want to keep a close eye on. And one of those guys is wide receiver Johnny Holton. He says that the fifth receiver spot, assuming the Raiders keep 5 receivers, has been one of the few openings the team has had to figure out, and it'll come down to the wire. Holton has been the most impressive throughout camp, especially since he brings ability in the return game, as we've talked about. Holton should play plenty in this Thursday's game. I doubt that Cooper or Crabtree are going to play a lot. So what are your thoughts on Johnny Holton at this point, as opposed to maybe surpassing Seth Roberts or Andre Holmes, or do you think that he makes it as a 5th wide receiver and they do indeed carry 5?
I believe that Johnny Holton is the best 5th option, and I say that pretty confidently. For the simple fact that, look, I mean, Seth Roberts, Andre Holmes, they have chemistry with Carr. They know this offense inside and out. They've been around for a little bit longer. And remember, last year we kept 6 wide receivers. We went into the season with 6 wide receivers. We had Cooper, Crabtree, Seth Roberts, Andre Holmes, Bryce Butler, and Rod Streeter. Now, Rod Streeter never made the active roster. We all know that story. But I think this is a case where we could literally go with 5. I believe they do go with 5. And I believe out of everything that we saw, Johnny Holton fits exactly what we're looking for from a 5th wide receiver. He's your 5th option. He's a specialist. So you could actually bring him in certain sub packages, certain down and distance situations, either as a decoy or we've already seen how explosive he can be with his speed and what he can do in open field. And that's the other key part. The fact that he has so much speed and is good in open field, he's also showcased his talents in kick returns and especially in punt returns. So he's definitely a special team option moving forward too, which would actually land him on the active roster. So with his versatility, now he's young, he still needs to be groomed as a wide receiver in more of his route running and getting acclimated to the football life. But like I said, what he brings to the table as a specialist is why I believe that he will be on this roster as our 5th wide receiver. Your thoughts, Pirate?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been extremely consistent. Another guy that they're talking about is KJ Brent, who's a guy that I really like. I didn't even know where this guy came from. Again, like we said, Hansley and McCaffrey and, Holton were the guys that were getting talked about. But KJ Brent just kind of burst onto the scene. He had a catch in the first preseason game, had 3 catches last game for 54 yards. Now, this is a guy that fits more into the kind of bigger frame mode at 6'4", compared to Holton, who is only a 6 foot tall receiver. Bigger, longer, sort of leaner, more of a possession guy. And now that McCaffrey's gone, I really felt like McCaffrey could come in and could play behind Holmes, and you wouldn't skip a beat. You'd have that big, tall, lanky kind of guy, but that McCaffrey could do more over the middle. So I was so surprised when that happened. I think KJ Brent fits into this category as well. So the question is going to be whether or not they are looking for that extra bit of height and length for those, red zone type of balls. So your thoughts on KJ Brent?
Yeah, I thought KJ Brent really showcased some skills. I think he fits the more prototype wide receiver at this point as far as his route running. You mentioned the fact that he would be a dominant figure in the red zone. I'm just under the impression that, I think that they like what they saw. If you look at the statistics alone, what Carr was able to do, what Crabtree and Cooper were able to do, and the way that Andre Holmes and Seth Roberts fit the backup role, I just feel like they're confident moving forward with that, because there was a lot of things that happened on the positive side with that wide receiving core, with a ton of missed opportunities as well. The tight ends weren't used enough, and there was a lot of drop passes once again. So if they feel that they could correct that part of it, our starting 4, if you will, is pretty solid if you go back from last year. So, I guess the question for me with KJ Brent was, has he shown enough? Do they feel that he has enough ability to take over Andre Holmes' spot more than that fifth wide receiver spot? That's what I would be looking for if he was in the mix.
Yeah. Okay. Another guy that they say, to look out for is Connor Cook, quarterback Connor Cook. So this is going to give us an opportunity to see him in some real extended time, 2-3 quarters. Maybe, McGloin is going to play in the first quarter, and then they're going to bring in Connor Cook in the second, let him go into, the third, and maybe even finish out this game to see what this guy has. Interestingly, Durkin says that Matt McGloin, it's the last year on his contract, but that he's the highest paid quarterback on this roster. Matt McGloin, highest paid quarterback on this roster right now, obviously including Derek Carr. McGloin's going to have an opportunity. He's going to be seeing a lot of Holton and Brent, who he showed that he had some chemistry with KJ Brent. But I would imagine he probably also has good chemistry with Holton. It's just that Holton has been inserted into the game to also develop some chemistry with McGloin and even with Derek Carr. Your thoughts on Connor Cook?
I think Connor Cook has showcased that this is a quarterback that can be developed. Now the question becomes, do they feel that he's already been developed enough to be the second string quarterback and we could dump Matt McGloin? In my personal opinion, I don't believe so. And the reason this is a double-edged sword for me. What I see from Matt McGloin is a guy that tries too hard. He under pressure, under certain situations, he's trying to make plays because he's trying to showcase that he could start in this league. He's doing everything he can, but that's not allowing him to make bad decisions. However, his experience in this offense, his experience in the league will help us make a push to get this team where we want it to go this season, especially if anything happens to Derek Carr. Now, we've seen some great talent from Connor Cook, but, it's been against some scrubs, and I don't think he's fully been tested in game time situations. The speed of the game is going to be different. I mean, he hasn't been challenged schematically. So if you look at what Derek Carr did to Seattle 2 years ago and how it transitioned into his regular season play, his numbers were okay, but he'll even tell you, wow, it is faster. He had to start off against a Rex Ryan defense. So picture us getting rid of Matt McGloin. Something happens to Carr where he loses a few weeks. I mean, there's some teams on the schedule, the Carolina Panthers, the Denver Broncos, the Atlanta Falcons, the Buffalo Bills, and other Rex Ryan defense we got to face. If we get in a situation where you have to throw Connor Cook out there, we could be in trouble because the game is going to be totally different. So in my personal opinion, and Jack Del Rio was quoted that they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, and I hope he was being truthful because I think that'll benefit us in the long run. Do I think Connor Cook is the backup of the future? Absolutely. Do I believe that Matt McGloin could start in this league? I don't know. I mean, every time that he's been put to the test and challenged, he's failed. So that is exactly what worries me moving forward. But I think he gives us a better chance than Connor Cook.
Yeah, right now, obviously, Matt McGloin is familiar with the system. He's played in the system, obviously, so that gives him an advantage. But, when you look at Connor Cook, he's going to have to get used to the speed. But this is a kid that in college never had less than a 100-point quarterback rating. So you got to look at it, threw for 3,000 yards, 2 of his 3 seasons, almost 3,000 yards in his sophomore year, I think 2,700 yards. So, and then you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, 71 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. So he knows what to do with the ball. He just needs to get comfortable and acclimated in this system. Once again, great problem to have. We keep McGloin,
right,
and we kind of just bring along Connor Cook to where it's not too much for him and he can get a season under his belt. James Cowser, undrafted pass rusher from Southern Utah, didn't see a defensive snap last week, was held out of the entire game. Is this a sign that the Raiders are trying to keep him and maybe sneak him onto the practice squad? Don't rule that out, but he also says that there is a chance, like I said earlier, that they go ahead and use him as a pass rusher on this 53-man roster. Your thoughts? Can they figure out a way, even though Cowser is a little on the smallish side for defensive end and maybe not as crisp in terms of his skills at linebacker. Can you see him making this 53-man roster, or do you think it's strictly practice squad for this undrafted kid out of Southern Utah?
Well, this has been one of the toughest ones because I think he showcased a lot of abilities, even as an undersized outside linebacker, defensive end. The question for me becomes, I think they want to get him on the practice squad, but what I fear is that he's already showcased enough skill set that he could be this year's Max Vallis. If you guys remember, Max Vallis was an undersized defensive end, weak side linebacker. They had plans for this kid. They wanted this kid this year to put on some size, and we would see Max Vallis a real essential part of this defense, in my opinion. But he wasn't ready. He was undersized, so they slid him on the practice squad. They were able to get him there, but Rex Ryan plucked him out the first chance he got and needed him. He put him on the active roster. I haven't been following his career, so I don't know where he's at today. I know he's still with the Bills, but I'm afraid that Cowser could be exactly that. If we cut him, there's a good chance he makes it onto the practice squad. But the first opportunity a team has where they lose a player, they go and grab him. And just because he goes on the practice squad doesn't mean that he makes the team. So for me, I hope he gets an opportunity to showcase something, at least on special teams, so he could find a spot on the kickoff return or the punt protection, so he could actually be a sub-package pass rusher, worst case scenario. But that's something that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, and hopefully I think he showcased enough that he could be a part of this thing moving forward, so we don't lose him to some other team here in the regular season.
Yeah, and I watched Vallis too, and this kid James Cowser just brings a lot more to the table. Max Vallis had some plays during preseason, but we didn't see a lot from the majority of those guys early on. I've seen a lot from James Cowser. Just relentless. I mean, he just has the heart. He's got a high motor, good football IQ. Gets pushed out of plays a little bit, and needs to work on his conditioning. But other than that, I think he can be a terror. Okay, we got about 2 minutes left here. Safety Dewey McDonald, third-year player, was on the rise during camp. He was one of the McDonald brothers. And then Durkin says it all came crashing down in preseason game 1. Keith McGill has kind of jumped in front of him after that. And Keith McGill has pretty much has a stranglehold on that position right there. But they're also talking about Brendan Trawick also being ahead of Dewey. Do you think that Dewey's going to be on one of the 22?
No, I don't. I think that McDonald's days are numbered. He's only on the roster now because we're going to protect the guys like McGill, Allen, Nelson, and Joseph. Those are going to be our primary 4. And the reason I think McGill has a strong shot at this is because, once again, he's versatile. He could play corner if we need him down the road, too. So I think that's one of the reasons he's ahead. And Treadwick is a good special team specialist. So, he's a gunner type. So there's room for that. Now, McDonald hasn't showcased enough. I know he bombed out against Arizona, and we haven't seen much of him since, but I just think the talent ahead of him is just too strong. So I don't think he makes it. Yeah,
you know what? I didn't like him going into camp. I didn't like him in those preseason games. I think that this is just a body, and they kind of are looking at him like, we don't even think we can develop this guy, moving forward. I was watching Hard Knocks the other night, and that's one of the things that Jeff Fisher was saying. There are some guys that you bring in when you're going to cut them, and you tell them, you know what, it's time for you to give up on the dream. It's probably not going to happen. And then there's guys that you say, we think you may have something. We can't use you here, but you should certainly continue making this the focus of what it is that you're trying to do from this point forward. So I think Dewey McDonald may just be one of those guys who, you know what, you're athletic, you're this, you're that, but when it comes down to it, we just, at least on this team, like I said, we just don't think that you have the chops to do this. It's going to take way too long to even develop that within you, So, that's my opinion. I think Dewey is short for this team. I think he's going to get a lot of playing time, but I think it's going to be the only playing time he gets probably, for the rest of his career.
Yeah, potential practice squad guy. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the show today. I want to leave you with one quick thought. even though this game is pretty much meaningless, there is a lot of things we could look out for. We cover some players that you should be keeping an eye on. And keep in mind, I want to leave you with one key note. Number one, what do they do with Marcel Reese and his 4-game suspension? That gives us an opportunity to keep an extra running back, so look there. Also, with Mario Edwards Jr.'s injury, let's keep an eye on that defensive rotation. There's a chance to keep a guy until he gets healthy just to kind of give him some extra work, and that might be the James Cowser opening that he's looking for. So, those are a few things just to look at as we move forward. Don't forget to go to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at The Will to Win, and email us with any questions or concerns at the w2w@gmail.com. That is the w2w@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for tuning in today. Let's get pumped up. The season is upon us. We just got to get to this one little bump in the road, which is the Seattle Seahawks, and then we're off to New Orleans to cause some damage. All right, Raider Nation, for the Raider Pirate, I'm the Oakland Knight, and you stay Raider strong.
Hey there, I'm Jason Smith, also known as the Oakland Knight. We'd like to thank you for watching the Will to Win broadcast here on YouTube. And if you would like to stay up to date for more content like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Or you could click any one of the videos on the side to watch more great videos. Thank you once again, and stay Raider strong.